Welcome to the Tao of Pizza, where we feature top logistics leaders, entrepreneurs, and supply chain innovators and share their inspiring stories with a holistic twist.
Mark Hiddleson here, host of the Tao of Pizza podcast, where I talk with top industry innovators in the warehousing, logistics, and supply chain business with a holistic twist. Now, before I introduce today's guest, this episode is brought to you by Specialized Storage Solutions, Inc. Now, I've been in the logistics and storage industry for several decades, which either means I started when I was in kindergarten or I've just aged really well. We provide industry-leading warehouse storage solutions nationwide. So basically what that means, if you have a warehouse that needs rack, shelving, carts, conveyors, or mezzanines, we help with the design, engineering, installation, inspections, and repairs to help our clients optimize their logistics operations. And it's funny, Kevin, sometimes people don't even realize we can actually help with the permit acquisition services. Yeah, we deal with the red tape so that you don't have to. We like to take a holistic look at your entire business supply chain ecosystem to develop the resources for continually improving your operation. To learn more, visit specialracks.com or give us a call at 707-732-3892. And just for podcast listeners, I give out my personal email. It's markhiddleson@AOL. Yes, I still use AOL, and yes, I'm proud of it. So if you're ready to take your warehouse and storage and retrieval systems to the next level, drop me a line. And I got one more shout out. I have to give a shout out to Michelle Carroll for introducing me to today's guest. Michelle is president of Corolco Marketing, where they specialize in sectors like logistics, supply chain management, high tech, and software. Their services include market entry, brand building, website design, public relations, and integrated marketing campaigns. She is also the executive director of ISIP, the International Society of Service Innovation Professionals, and she was a great guest on the podcast a few years ago. So thank you, Michelle. Today, we're joined by Kevin Clark. Kevin is an award-winning business innovator, serial entrepreneur, and the first brand steward for ThinkPad notebook computers, originally IBM, today Lenovo. He is director emeritus, I struggle with that word. It's important. IBM brand and values experience and co-author of Collective Intelligence in the Age of AI, Humanity in Motion, and Healthcare, Robotics, and Wellbeing. Tens of billions of dollars of intangible brand value have been managed by Kevin. Today, Kevin is president and federation leader of Content Evolution, CEO of Platform UX, and chairman and CEO of Choice Flows. He advises leaders on emerging trends at the intersection of people and technology and holds several board positions, both fiduciary and advisory. Kevin, welcome to the Tao of Pizza.
Well, great to be with you.
Yeah, I have to say something about Michelle. She's a great leader. Her and I have worked on nonprofit organizations since I was early in my career, probably 25 years of hosting 4 or 5 meetings a year with 40 to 50 people, or maybe more, a couple hundred. And I just love connecting with Michelle, and I'm glad she connected us.
Yeah, and the International Society of Service Innovation Professionals is very lucky to have Michelle as a professional leader.
Yeah, awesome. And a little bit later, I want to ask you about your involvement in ISIP, because that's another way we met. But first, share a little bit about your background, maybe where you grew up, but how did you become involved with IBM?
Well, got involved with IBM over the kitchen table. My dad worked for the company, right? So together, we put in 68 years of collective service, right, to the IBM Corporation. And, when I, got to the point where I could retire, I said, yeah, 3/4 of the company is, or probably closer to 2/3 of the company said, that's probably enough service from the Clark household, right, and family. So he was the director of executive resources, which is the internal headhunting function to find the talent that was going to be occupying the top seats in the corporation. So he had to present to the board of directors a couple of times a year about replacement tables and succession planning and things of that nature. So quite interesting. That was his terminal assignment. But when we were younger, growing up, it was a branch manager circuit, and we were following transaction processing, from Sabre Airlines reservation system, Sabre, that was programmed in Tulsa. And then eventually they moved to Dallas, Fort Worth. And he took a job in Kansas City. And they said, hey, Harley, we need you in Memphis, right? Why? Because this outfit, Holiday Inn, wants a reservation system for people, to be able to book a hotel or a motel room, right, in advance.
Yeah.
So, it was an interesting life. And I'll tell you one other thing. I grew up as the son of a person who was the son of a track foreman for the Santa Fe Railroad, right? And so Harley and Sybil were, they would build track. They build enough track every once in a while, either in northern Oklahoma or southern Kansas, that they would change schools. And that would happen every 2 or 3 weeks, right? As they were progressing, right, across the plains. And, so you want to talk about, pace of change is incredible, right? Things are changing. So it's like, not like that.
Yeah.
Right? So the fact is, I kind of grew up with, somebody who was used to a lot of change. And so what we're experiencing right now is a fraction of what he had to, live through, first through sixth grade. So.
Yeah, and the personal and emotional toll that takes on a young person.
Well, actually, he ended up, being able to make friends really fast.
Yeah,
and then say goodbye with grace and move on to the next experience, which actually served him well, right, throughout his life.
Yeah, adapting in those circumstances at a young age, build healthy coping, and saying goodbye with grace. That's a great one.
Well, that's what I was trying to teach when I was for the chairman's office, trying to help later in my career, develop relationships with people and create an ecosystem. You might think of it like a university alumni association of former people. And I said, I did the research, and you know what the key is to making that work is, one, you have to tell people while they're employed that this is a benefit of employment, right? That you're part of a special group of people that this will benefit you for the rest of your life. Where do you hear that? Well, if you go to one of the major universities, right? If you work early career at McKinsey or one of the top consulting firms, they say, yeah, you're part of the club, and, professional courtesies will be granted for. And I said, the second thing is you have to be able to say goodbye with grace, all right? We teach people how to, onboard and how to manage people, but you don't talk about departure, right? Whether it's retirement or, it's departure for cause, or somebody has a better opportunity. I said, you're not going to build this community of people unless they want to continue to be affiliated with each other. And that last moment was actually a thanks for being here. All right. We know you're going on to something better, or something that's a better fit for you.
Yeah, that's amazing. So I've had really the most, the most significant. It just reminds me what you're sharing. When I started my own company, I was with another company for 8 years, and I learned so much. And I loved my boss, and I mean love it, like unconditional high regard. It taught me so many things. But there was a new opportunity. I was going to be a little bit of a competitor. One of the reasons I left, it was a new niche. But I Googled it 2 weeks ahead of time, like, how do you quit with class? And this was 2004. And so I wrote everything down. I did everything, and it didn't end perfectly. It wasn't graceful on both ends, but I will say 8 years later, after trying to reconnect, we were able to make that graceful connection. So I would also add to that, it's never too late to have a really
no, it's not. And when you think about it, you're inside of a community of people that you've chosen because you applied, it looks like a fit, right? And so you're going to be there. But you're connected to a lot of things. I mean, you're in, the business of supply chain management. I like to think more of value chain than supply chain because, when you think about it, if, just supplying each other across a continuum, things coming in, we add some value to it and we sell it to other people. If your values are aligned and you're choosing people not just on price, but on their character, their judgment, their ability to serve you well, right, without lots of disruption in management, that they're kind of in the same zone that you are, then that manifests right out in the world in some very positive ways. When you're misaligned, you end up with a problem like Takata airbags in Japan, all right, where there's one person, there's one company over here, and they're not making this the way that you want to, and it affects an entire industry, not just, one thing. And you kind of go, oh, we had to recall all the Japanese cars for a particular period of time because, this doesn't save your life. It puts shrapnel in your face, if it goes off. Well, that's not aligned. Okay. If you know anything about, I've done a lot of business in Japan, but if you know Kaizen and Lean and Kanban and all those other kinds of things that are, total quality management things, you want to have suppliers that are giving you things that you have a lot of confidence in, right?
Yeah.
And that is not based on the lowest cost supplier.
Yeah.
You want the highest confidence supplier that you can get at the best price as a secondary attribute. So that's me, all right? I've done research in the area, and dyadically, I can look at, how well values and value is being transmitted through a system.
I love systems thinking. And
think about that. Values create the ability to deliver value into the marketplace, and the result is high valuation. Right?
Yeah,
so your company's worth more, or if it's publicly traded, if it's private, your internal rate of return is up. And if you're a not-for-profit, it's that you have access to resources that are sustainable to support your mission. Okay, all measurable.
Yeah,
that's the 3V model. Values, value, valuation.
The 3D, 3V.
3V. I created this 3V model that is a virtuous progression. And if you try to go backwards and say, this is how much money we want to make, right? And how do we do that? How do we create something that'll make that money and, we'll align ourselves any way that we have to do it? It doesn't work.
Yeah. Yeah.
You have to go from shared values to delivering value to having that valuation as an outcome.
So how long would you say, so you've been studying this. One of my frustrations, I guess early, I studied holistic. I got my master's degree in holistic health education when I was in my late 20s, early 30s. I guess I was 35 when I got my master's degree. And I was shocked by values or trust that was seen as like soft skills, like our values or personal or, integrity. Basically, to get in the game, you had to have things like integrity, honesty, but values. When would you say that started to shift, or have you seen that shift, or from your perspective, how long have companies and organizations been looking?
Let me go back to the kitchen table for a second. All right.
Yeah.
Remember I told you I learned stuff over the kitchen table?
Yeah.
Well, my dad used to put these replacement tables. It was a big organization chart with Velcro on it, and he could move pictures around on it and tell a story about, if Charlie, leaves the company or gets hit by a truck or whatever, here's our ready candidate, that can come in. And here's the person that in 2 years is our ideal candidate that we're developing. And here are some other people that are competing from other places in the world, women, people who've served in the armed forces, people who, have, different ethnic backgrounds, blah, blah, blah. And, the fact is, he would be able to tell that story. And I said, Dad, what are you looking for? What's the thing that you think is important? Judgment. I'm looking for a person who has high judgment. And I didn't ask it that day, but it wasn't too far along. I said, well, what is that? Okay. What was that? He said, it's two things. It's character and competence, right? It's, can I trust you? Right? Can I have faith in, right, your ability, to do things that are both, like 7th-generation wisdom, from an American Indian, right, point of view, is it's good for the tribe right now, and it's good 7 generations from now, right? Yeah. It's a temporally good decision, right, on some transcendent basis. And we think you know what you're talking about. We think you know what you're doing, right, when you lead. Well, turns out later I have seen similar kinds of things when you describe teaming for the Army Rangers or the SEALs, right, Navy SEALs, right, all of those fast reaction teams. When they choose their team leader themselves, they do it themselves, is they don't care about the competence component. They care about character, right? Can we trust this guy, right, to take us into the assignments, right? And we have all the other competencies. We got the sniper and we got the other, whatever. When you think about it, in the era that we're moving forward in, competency is increasingly available on demand through systems, whether it's a platform or robotics process automation or machine learning or AI, or, we're going to be able to call upon it in the moment that we need it. So what do organizations need to develop? Character. We're going to have to be spending a lot more time as this on-demand stuff, starts to, become available. What is the human element? It's, these systems, including, whatever you think about the current stage of AI, they're not conscious and they don't have character.
Yeah, absolutely.
They're fast. They do a lot of things. And so we should be using those tools. But at the end of the day, it should be amplifying, the humanness of the character of both the individuals and, the organization itself, so that in aggregate, you have better situational awareness and judgment collectively, so that takes you back to collective intelligence. Look, and now, I wrote a book about collective intelligence with Kyle Shannon. And this is the future of us thinking together, having access to all this human knowledge, increasingly accessible in the blink of an eye, but the way to use it that is actually an intelligent use, as opposed to a, passive, that we become increasingly passive. Oh yeah, I can just do it. Is you become more interested. You're able to spend what attention you have in ways that are more purposeful.
Share an example. So would you say, we're finding, I think some of the ways that we're using AI, ChatGPT is, I was on a podcast where they were asking leaders, what's your top 10 or what's your favorite book, favorite app? And I can forget what the other one, but on the app, they're like, you can't say ChatGPT, you can't say Slack, you can't say, and then I was like, I thought I was on the cutting edge because I'm using Slack. But what are some of the ways where you see that using AI and spending more time instead of I can instantly generate the result I need to, write this letter, do this outline for this project, or what are some examples of digging deeper that you think would be good to share here?
I'm going to answer your question in a slightly orthogonal way. We're going to kind of go over here and then we'll come back.
Okay.
Is the first time you were exposed to this, or you've watched someone, see, oh, look, it's writing a poem. Look, it's making a picture, right? Whatever. Is our research says most people go, wow, that's cool, right? That's the first reaction that you have to exposure to this technology. here, you try it, okay? And a shiver goes up your spine. This is incredible, right? Then the follow-up is, so when was the first time you had that experience at work with AI? Hasn't happened, okay? So what's the difference between seeing it for the first time and experiencing it that way, and why isn't that happening in the workplace? Well, we have routines, we have all kinds of things that we've ritualized, and the fact is, you might even be in an industry like banking or finance where there are FINRA regulations. They say, please don't bring that to work.
Yeah.
Don't touch our system. All right. This is a sacred temple of data, right? That, is okay. I get it. So yeah, exactly. So the point is, we have, in our collab that's been in existence for about 3 years, we developed this thing called Wow AI, right? And it's like research says, people have that experience. So change the culture in your workplace so that people can start to feel like they have permission in certain spaces to do rapid prototyping and experimentation so that they can have that wow themselves, right? That they start to feel very comfortable in this space. And look, if you're using this technology, you're not having fun, you're doing something wrong.
Yeah, it is. I got chills when you said you get chills. I got chills.
Yeah, I mean,
I remember that. It's like,
so,
yeah, you do.
So you have to create a permissioning structure and safe spaces and ability for this to manifest in the workplace. And so many times they say, well, if they want me to use it, they'll give me the tools. It'll be top down, and I'll do whatever the procedures are. Well, that is not going to lead to joy.
Yeah.
And the dirty secret to my career was, people have been paying me for my hobbies for decades, right? Because I like what I do. I have something I call getting paid twice.
Yeah.
Yes, I'll take your money. All right. Thank you for that part of this. But also, increasingly, because these are my businesses now, right? Is if it isn't interesting, fun, or entertaining, then I don't want to do it.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, I'm well past just wanting to do something because you can give me money for it. I have so much attention left in my life, and I'm going to spend it in ways that are both and, right? Yeah. That are billable and are beautiful problems to solve, right? Yeah. That I'm interested in.
Or I've even found, and I think you're an alpine skier, right? Did I remember that?
I am.
I
love it.
And a lot of the insights, the big ahas I've had about projects and breakthroughs when I was either surfing or skiing, and then you're like, boom, I just got chills again. Well, you have this idea that a customer's been working on. He's just like, I'm going to call Chris when I get back in the car because I just thought of something. I'm like, and I'm going to charge him a lot more for this time because I'm surfing. And then this is I'm solving your problems out here. Is that kind of what you're talking about?
Sure, absolutely.
I mean, flow state, and you're just like, wait a minute.
I have a database of ideas, all right, knowledge base of things that are hypotheses and partially explored theses, where there's enough information that I'm getting confident about it. And I would say a third of those came from the backs of envelopes when I was on vacation, or the back of a receipt at a restaurant. Yeah. Because you just get, I go to bed, all right, with, one of these, voice recorders, because I'll have an idea in the middle of the night instead of trying to, I got to remember this when I wake up in the morning. I just record it, and, sometimes it's gibberish and it's not worth pursuing, and sometimes it's a great idea, right? Yeah. But yeah, I mean, those downtimes can be very productive. What you need to be able to do is not go back to work because you had a good idea, right? Is you need, I had a time management person, probably 5 years into my career, come in as a guest speaker, for larger team.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember one thing from that talk, and it was, you have to schedule your personal time as aggressively as you schedule your business time. Otherwise, your business calendar will continue to eat away at your personal time, right? So, be very intentional about scheduling the personal things that you want to do and get done so that those become communicable. That sounds like a disease, doesn't it?
Right.
But a communicable barrier to someone who wants to say, and you say, no, I'm sorry, I've scheduled time with the family to do this, right? But I can offer you that, okay? I can't talk to you on Saturday, but I could talk to you at Sunday afternoon after 5. And most people, will accept the counter.
Yeah, we did that for years. My early career, I was, because my boss, one of the reasons I loved him, he did give me that advice. And I've been a work from homer. I mean, I know that's become popular in the past 5 years, but I was working from home in the late 90s, and people would say, how do you maintain focus to stay at work? And my answer was always, you know what? It's easy for me to stay focused on work. What's hard for me is to turn it off at 5 o'clock and not be sneaking back into the home office at midnight at 1:30, 2:30. That was I didn't have to give myself any communicable barriers to go to work. It had to be exactly like you're saying. Like,
and I worked for an insomniac at one point in my career.
Oh,
really great person. All right. Very smart, and would wake up at 1:30 or 2 o'clock in the morning and start throwing down ideas. All right. And I would, turn on my email and look at what I had to do. And there would be 18 ideas or to-dos. And I, eventually, and it was pretty quick, I said, I can't do all the things that you're giving me that when I open up my mail every morning. So you know what I'm going to do? Here's the deal. And you tell me if you like it or not. I say, I'm going to pick the ones that I like. All right. And I'm going to work on those. And then if one of them is really important to you, ask and remind me that you want to know about that. And he said, deal. All right. And you know what? 9 times out of 10, he never followed up. Right.
yeah.
Just the stuff that I was interested in was what I went and, thought, would report and back. And I say, you remember that idea that you should, here it is. Okay. And it worked out like a charm, because that gave me the out to basically ignore, stuff and not feel like I had to act on every one of them.
Yeah. I love the way you communicated that too, because it's like, here's what I love about you sent me. You didn't say, hey, it sucks that you sent me 18 things and I only want to do 3. The way you framed it was beautiful. And I think that's a beautiful way of communicating. And I think great leaders, I might be wrong about this, is my own, but I think great leaders are coming up with 18 ideas and counting on their team to pick 3 that they love and give the leader an opportunity. It's like, hey, if I missed one and this was a 10 to you, and share, but otherwise I'm going to run with these 3, and I would be delighted.
Yeah.
Especially if you're coming back with results.
Okay. So 2 things. One is most M&A deals start with a conversation between 2 leaders, and they say, hey, you know what? We could bring these companies together, whatever it could be a merger, it could be an acquisition, it could be whatever. But, you go back and you communicate, hey, I want you to evaluate, all right, do this quietly, all right, but take a look at whether, if we came together, what this would do. By the time that message gets to the staff people who are going to do the work, it's the boss wants to do this, figure out how to make it happen, right? And that wasn't the request. The request was evaluate it, and by the time it gets there, it's a mandate, right? And so a lot of M&A deals, pick up inertia through miscommunication of intention, right? And that's a problem, because I could have told you the day that Daimler Chrysler was announced, right, that wasn't going to work, right? that Stuttgart and Detroit were not on the same page from a management style, engineering, or anything else, right? It may have looked good on a spreadsheet, but it wasn't going to last, right? It was kind of, in my head, without cultural due diligence, it was dead on arrival, when I first found out about it. So, of course, that turned out to be right, but I'm not always right, but in that case, it was. Second is that there's an article that's called What Service Businesses Must Do, to Get Things Right. I think that's the title. And inside of that, there's a great insight, which is you have to decide what you're not going to do well. Because at the end of the day, you only have so many resources, and you have to focus the resources on what you're going to be known for, as opposed to working the list of things that people are complaining about. Early days, we installed a lot of Microsoft software on those ThinkPads, right? And let me tell you what the ability was for a user to call Microsoft and get help. It was not good.
I know what it is. I have I'm still using the ThinkPad. That's one of the things I told my team, and I called it the PC because I have a MacBook Air Pro. I use that for certain things, but I run my business and everything. I always called it the PC, and their dad, it's not a PC, Dad. So we started calling it the ThinkPad. I love that thing.
So Microsoft deselected in the early days service and support as one of the things that it was going to deliver to the marketplace directly, right? Which, would be problematic, except here's the workaround. They said, what we're going to do is we're going to create certifications for certified Microsoft techs out in the marketplace, and that's who you're going to call. So they converted an expense to the bottom line into a revenue source because the certifications cost money, right? So that was an interesting piece of business model jujitsu. Today, I have one of their higher level, they've rescaled themselves, and I have a higher level license, and I can still talk to a human being, and they help me, and they're actually really good. But I'm talking about before, all right? When they were running early days, really lean, that was one of their deselects, and but they had a way to still help, people with their issues, and they're clearly a successful company. So I'm not calling them on their evolution, because they've done fine for themselves.
Yeah. So I wanted to ask you. I'm glad you brought. So what was your how were you involved? Because the way I've described it to my team is like, hey, I'm interviewing the guy who invented the ThinkPad. I always have a tendency, and so I just want you to clarify how you were involved and share.
Sure.
Your involvement.
I know the people who did.
Okay.
Right? The lead engineer in Japan. This is a Japanese, product.
Okay.
From an engineering point of view. So, Aramasa Naito-san was the, father of ThinkPad from an engineering point of view, and the reliability and all the things that come along with, the way that it was engineered, is a direct, descent of his ethos and the way that he thought about things. And I still talk to him, a couple of times a year. He's a great person. He's a pretty good golfer, right? And he's enjoyable to be around. The other piece was the design. The design was the direct result of working with Richard Sapper, who was a legendary industrial designer, and he was out of Italy, out of Milan, but originally from Germany, and had a very strong ethos. His idea was like a Japanese bento box, right? Have you ever seen a bento box,
Yeah.
right? That moves from home and gets transported for lunch. Well, he said, look, it's very elegant, simple on the outside, and then you open it up and there's a surprise inside. All right. What meal am I getting for the bento box? Well, the surprise was red track point for navigation. The first time that color screens had been introduced, right, to the marketplace. So it became iconic. And my job as the brand steward was to sit at the edge of the organization and represent the customers to the business and the business to the customers, all right? And make sure that that iconic status didn't change in a way that people could not recognize they had a ThinkPad, right? So that was part of it. I got involved in a lot of crisis management in that job, where we had issues. The batteries were always problematic in the early days. They would overheat. Rapid thermal discharge. Yeah, it caught on fire. Right. So the rapid release of chemistry. Yeah, same thing. All right. And I would sit there in those meetings and say, we are not going to do a calculation about how many are going to fail before we're going to, do something in the marketplace. I said, people trust us, and they trust the parent company. They have these as individual objects, or they have them as a fleet in a business, but they also have mainframe computers, and they have all kinds of other things from us. We're not going to sully the reputation of the IBM Corporation by not doing the right thing immediately. So we always had a rapid response that was positive for the customer, because I'm sitting in those meetings representing that point of view, and it didn't make any difference how high up the executive was. I had the ability to call the chairman's office.
Nice. So that's, as a brand steward, that was your
job. I mean, I'm representing the interests of, not because I wasn't selling ThinkPads, I was selling IBM ThinkPads, right?
Yeah.
And so there was a lot of equity, intangible equity, that was sending back to the shareholders that went on a line item, on the corporate spreadsheet, along with patent revenue, licensing revenue, intangible valuation. When I retired, IBM by Interbrand was worth $72 billion of intangible revenue. Valuation for, current. And what it meant was it was discounted future revenue, confidence that the IBM Corporation was going to be able to continue to do what it did well into the future, right? So it was a confidence measure, right? You call it brand equity, but brand equity is basically a confidence measure. Just like buying stock, if a stock has multiples on its revenue, those multiples are coming from confidence that you're going to be able to do this X number of years out and continue on a certain trajectory that is either linearly extrapolated as growth, or as exponential as growth. I mean, a lot of the AI, NVIDIA, things of that nature, their valuations look exponential. Yeah. Okay, well, that's a lot of confidence.
Yeah. So I want to ask you a question that...
yeah, go ahead.
So how, and you've answered this a few different ways, I want to be a little more specific, is how do the lessons that you learned for working, large multilateral like IBM, how does that translate to the business success you're having now? And there's a specific quote that I got off of Content Evolution. It's contentevolution.net, right? It is. Yeah. Contentevolution.net. And right on the homepage, it says, we believe a brand invites and the experience delights. We believe in listening and leading that quietly changes the world. Mm-hmm. And so I want you to share how that IBM translates, and kind of the companies you're working and working with now, the success stories now, and how that ties back to the success with the big company.
Some of the success stories I can't tell you about because they're confidential. So right. Okay. We set that aside. Let's just unpack the phrasing for a second.
Yeah.
the way that we're organized is listening, leading, intention, and attention. All right. We listen to what's happening in the marketplace, voice of people, trends, and what you would call in Santa Fe Institute, complex adaptive systems theory language, right, is that you have, situational awareness of how the fitness landscape is changing, right, around you.
Yeah.
You use that information to then, merge with whatever your purpose is, your relevance, right, to people who want to work with you, your customers, your stakeholders, your constituents, all right? If the language changes, whether you're doing business or you're not-for-profit or you're governing, right? All the names of the characters that are being influenced change. But at the end of the day, you listen, and that creates the ability to lead, all right? You're going to, have that fusion of our values with, those people that we're choosing to work with. We can't work with the entire planet. So it's who do we, choose, all right, to do business with. And then that creates the raw material. Look at that as coal that you can crush under heat and pressure into a very small object, a diamond, all right, that's multifaceted. That is your brand. Okay. That's your intention made manifest in the world. Can I tell you everything that we do? No. All I can do is issue an invitation to potentially, work with us. And if you accept that invitation, then, the attention that you can create and the experience that you deliver, takes that brand promise and makes it dimensional. And if you're having a good experience, you go back and you can listen again. And so what sounded linear is actually circular, right? And it's a system, and that's what we have the most fun with. And across each of those areas, the listening to the marketplace and people, the strategy, that is, the leadership, and so on and so forth, is you can do that based on best practices, which is what most of the consulting companies sell you, right? Is we'll show you how the best companies on the planet, do this, and we will help you get there, which is great. Go work with them, right? We're interested in next practices. We want to understand the way it's done today, but we want to go beyond that and do something. I'll put it in military terms. Every general, right, wants to make a move that the enemy has never seen before, right?
Yeah.
Because that's probably going to be, better than doing, we know what they're going to do, right? Yeah. All you have to do is go back to the American Revolution and realize, right, that, marching in formation all of a sudden was not a good play. Right?
Yeah.
So the fact is, we're looking at we have a group called Internext, and so the next practices are what we want to deliver to our clients, right? Is, look at that and do something either slightly or change your category, right? So that other people have to react to you, right? Because you're doing something that is sufficiently different that now we're going to, have to adapt into the space that has been, created. And it's much easier to create a category change that's highly aligned with what you know how to do. And then you say, look, we're the incumbent, right? This is what you want. All right, great. All right, we're already there. All right. And to some degree, you go back into the world of watching Apple's valuation grow. It's because they kept on creating categories of objects that, people didn't know they wanted yet.
Yeah.
But were, I do want that.
Yeah.
And you know where they took that playbook from? Sans the programming expertise, Sony. Because the Walkman and all the other things that happened during the product era, where you didn't need software It was all, hey, it's all here in your hands.
Yeah.
Sony was the leader of that kind of innovation.
And there was another company. I read the Walter Isaacson biography of Steve Jobs, and there was some company that had a little thing that had the little icons. Or actually it was just a sketch. Somebody had come up with an idea, and people just scrapped it. Like, nobody is going to want
Well,
it.
the first smartphone that was ever made in the world was the IBM Simon.
Yeah.
And it didn't go anyplace.
Yeah.
The first ThinkPad that was ever made was a tablet computer. And I can tell you, the category tablet, there were a lot of tablets that were made and they all failed. Fail until the iPad. And the iPad worked because people were using the iPhone, and they did what Nicholas Negroponte said at MIT Media Lab, that, when we're going to get successful, when we use this as the pointing device, not a built-in pen, okay? Use your finger, right? And so that was the way that you navigated iPhone, and they scaled it up to an iPad. And that's when tablet computing took off. It had some niche stuff happening in warehouses and so on and so forth, things that, lists that you could tap, right, with a stylus. But it wasn't popular until that. And then there were all kinds of clones, right? But Apple made it popular.
Yeah. And I've seen construction managers using them now, and I don't. Like, I have one, I'm not using it, but it is, because you can draw on them, you can put your notes, you can have a spreadsheet right next to it. I mean, you can highlight things, you can read blueprints, you can have all the blueprints on there. If you want to get to a certain page, skip to that page, blow it up, screenshot it. I mean, it's the stuff that would take a couple days or a week, maybe, you can do right there.
I mean, we've been talking for years. My friend Tim Beharon, who just told me the other day, we were having dinner, that he's going to the Consumer Electronics Show. And this will be the 51st time that he's gone to the show. And I said, well, you've been going for a long time, Tim. So he's leading this XR panel. I think it's on Thursday of the show. But at any rate, wearables, right? Wearable displays. Right? How long has that been in development? 30 years or more, right? And they come and they go. And where do they stay? They're stickier in industrial applications than they are in general purpose. More involved if it's VR with gaming, and so it will cross over when it becomes a natural interface, right, for something that we want to do on a daily basis. Right now, hasn't quite crossed that threshold, but it probably will. And when it does that, then we're going to have another overlay of information available to us all the time. Because I've been talking for years about, the person working in confined spaces, looking at something and saying, I need the tech specs, all right, for this, right? And they could come up, right in front of what you're looking at, without having to refer to another object. If I were in the elevator repair business, tight spaces, right? I want that information to come up right in front of me, as opposed to having to refer to another device. So it's coming. I mean, I can see it coming.
So I want to keep this conversation going, but I know you have a cutoff. So I'm gonna do one last question. I'm gonna leave it open to you. Share a little bit about platform UX, because I participated on ISIP one. I love that idea, and best way to get in touch with you if people are interested. How do people connect if they want to learn more about what you're working on?
Sure, I'm glad to do it. I mean, we're inventing a lot of things. Like I said, we have this Wow AI platform for making AI a cultural thing inside the organization. We've got all kinds of interesting research methodologies in the listening part. Platform UX sits in the leading strategy piece. So as I told you, lots of the incumbent great consulting organizations will run a diagnostic and say, oh, look, you don't do this as well as, others, right, in your category or in the marketplace, right? We can fix that, right? We don't care. we just don't care. But if we run the same diagnostic, and instead of looking at things to fix, we say, oh, look, you're really good at this, all right? If we can discover things that an organization does really well, but only for themselves, then we can pick some of those, lift them up, and create a platform that creates a new source of revenue for that business. So, for instance, one of our co-founders worked with a civil engineering firm, and they were digging around one year and said, "Where's that spreadsheet for the last year for the bonuses? Or was that who do we pay? What do we pay them?" Right? And they couldn't find it. And they had to kind of reconstruct it from memory from every one of the managers. And it was a big pain. They said, don't want this to happen again. Let's make a bonus, calculator, that will give us some institutional memory on this. So they did. And they were able to take that one thing. It had an API plug-in to their payroll system, right? And they said, let's sell that to everybody else. It has nothing to do with our core business. We're a civil engineering firm. This is more of a CFO kind of thing or an HR kind of, crossover. And it became its own business and, created another, stream of revenue. And if people are willing to work with us, we can identify those things, either code them into existence. Sometimes platforms don't require that. All right. Jiffy Lube is a platform, but it has a cookbook that says, here's how you change oil in 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Right. So the way that it functions and everything else is knowable, it's repeatable, it's defined. The treasure hunt is once you know what the topics are that you want to explore with the leadership team, they don't know everything that's going on in the company. So we create an opportunity for a threaded discussion to take place for everyone that you want to invite. That could be everybody in the company, all right? It could be hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands of people. We have had previous experiences, other firms, right, where those kinds of discussions have gotten up to hundreds of thousands of people. And the point is, now you're discovering on certain topics where the hidden treasure is, right? Because sometimes these really great processes and procedures are at a departmental level, or they're at a functional level inside a division, right? And so they have to be revealed, and this methodology allows you to do it. We only have that conversation. This is not persistent. It's like 1 day, 2 days, maybe maximum 3. You invite everybody. It's like senior management's listening, and we're going to do something, right? As a result of what you tell us. People love it. I mean, they have a lot of fun. They know it's not going to be available forever, so it's advertised, here's when it's going to be available. And the people who want to participate do. All right. As they say, you go to Army with the Army you have, right? And, you have the participants that want to play.
Yeah.
And then you do the final stage, which is you take those ideas, you put them in some kind of order, you talk about how easy some of them might be, how difficult the other ones are, but the difficult ones might have a higher rate of return long-term. Okay. And so you do the easy ones, you create some revenue, and you arc over into the stuff that's harder. It's very satisfying. And honestly, for leaders who are having difficulty with budgets, and they say, we just laid off all the consultants. We're not doing any of that. In fact, we're finding it hard to hold on to our own employees. Our value proposition is we can come in and do this work and, do the diagnostic. And if you're willing to work with us and sign an agreement that says that if we discover it and if we create it and take it to market, that we're both going to share in the revenue stream, we can do some of this work on our side and you don't have to write any checks.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Right? Now, some of the larger companies, like, if we find IP in our company, there's no way that we're going to share any revenue with you. And I said, well, either you're not going to work with us or you're going to do it as work for hire, right? That we'll do this, but then you have to pay full freight, for whatever it is that you want us to do. That's fine.
Yeah.
So at any rate, that's Platform UX. It's an inversion of standard consulting that's really cool.
I love it. We met, hearing you talk, we met through a treasure hunt and was sharing of ideas. It's a beautiful, I usually don't participate in things like that because I look at the value for time invested, but Michelle had invited to me. I put her on a pedestal that's above a lot of other, but I'll tell you, I was thrilled to see how quickly it happened, how quickly the ideas were organized. And then we're out of time. I know you have a commitment on the back end of this, so I just want to be the first to really, I've been looking forward to this interview. You've been outstanding. I want to keep it going. I want to plan another round already, but thank you for joining us on this interview. There's a lot of value here, and we'll have links.
Thank you for inviting me. It was an enjoyable conversation. Keep moving in the right direction. As I like to, tell people, be intentional and move from being just successful to being significant. Okay. That's where you want to go. All right. Is, get outside of your own KPIs and your own frame of reference and get out to that bigger world of opportunities. That's kind of the underlying theme of everything we just discussed. Right. And if you can do that, if you can look at that larger, 360-degree view, there's a big world out there, lots of opportunities, and you can pick a few. You can't do all of them, but you can pick a few that weren't on the table before. So, Mark, great spending time with you today. And if you want to, we'll do it again.
I love it. I definitely will connect. Thank you very much.
Thanks for listening to the Tao of Pizza podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.